And thus, Conrad was orphaned at the age of 11. At first, he continued his education in Poland itself, but later on, by the year 1874, he decided to go to France. And this was actually arranged by his uncle, and he felt that it was not the situation in Poland was not good for a boy who was looked upon as someone who was the son of a person who had been fighting for Polish independence. So, of course, the young Conrad at first went to France in Marseille, and he mixed with a number of with a variegated and cosmopolitan crowd, and he spent 5 years there, which proved to be quite memorable. But during this time, he tried to start a proper marine career here in France, and he formed a syndicate with 3 other men. He acquired a small vessel called the Tremolino, and he engaged in gun running between France and Spain in the years 1877 to 1878. However, through the treachery of one of the crew, the vessel was ambushed, and it was lost. Conrad attempted suicide out of utter frustration and helplessness. But his uncle rushed to nurse the injured Conrad, pay his debts, and he was rescued. And then, as he had lost his reputation in France, he tried to secure a job on board a British freighter. And in June 1878, he arrived in England for the first time with an English vocabulary of about 100 words. He took time to secure a seamanship, but by 1880 he could master enough skills in his job and the new language to be able to pass his examination as second mate, and obtained an officer's position in a clipper to sail to Australia. And at this time he obtained a trilingual and tricultural identity. Actually, wherever he was, he did not belong there, to that place wholly. And he had a kind of a contrary nature in his character. His father's idealist, nationalistic fervor and enlightened conservatism was marked by the opposite, his uncle's practical, conservative approach to life. And these opposed poles further contributed to Conrad's dual affinities. So, during this time, as we see that he ultimately, as we saw, he became a seaman, and he made several voyages to the far eastern waters, namely to Singapore, Borneo, and the Gulf of Siam, all of which served as material for his novels. And he undertook one trip to Congo in Africa, and this, of course, led to the writing of his famous novel, Heart of Darkness, which we have to read. And all these places which he had visited, these are not merely backgrounds in his novels. They have their own characters, and of course we get to see or read about the very beautiful descriptions of these places. So during this time, from a sailor, he became a writer. And the trip to the Congo stirred Conrad's imagination. He returned to sea, but his health could not withstand the hardships of his life because he fell victim to malaria. And with the encouragement of John Galsworthy, he now turned to writing as a profession. And his first novel, Almayer's Folly, was accepted for publication and appeared in the year 1895. Thereafter he continued to write, and in 1896 his next novel, An Outcast of the Islands, was published. Both these books got a sympathetic reception from the critics, several of whom recognized the originality and genius of the new author. And later on, he married an English woman called Jessie George in 1896, and later on, as we see, his health broke down under severe mental stress, and he was also suffering from malarial gout. And however, he wrote a number of novels such as Under Western Eyes and The Secret Sharer. And later, of course, we find that towards the end of his life, he was one of the most famous living authors in Britain. And in 1923, he made a visit, his only visit to America. The remaining period of his life was taken up by his own and his wife's sickness. And in May 1924, he declined the offer of a knighthood from Ramsay MacDonald. And in July 1924, he suffered a heart attack. And on August 3, 1924, he passed away.